I have for you today the top 40 players in this year's NFL draft as of right now. This is before combines, pro days, all of that good stuff. I'm sure a handful of this will change, but here are my top 40 prospects going into this year's draft. Now, again, this is not a mock draft. These are the top 40 players in the draft. At number 1 overall, I have outside linebacker, edge rusher Abdul Carter. Now, is Carter the best edge rushing prospect we've ever gotten? No, he's no Myles Garrett or Bosa as they were prospects, but I do think he is a great prospect. Carter is explosive and extremely versatile for the position. He has the flexibility, but also the strength and explosiveness. He gets sacks, tackles for losses, pressures. He's just so productive. And you saw that in some of the biggest games of the year in the college football playoffs. Now, he only has 1 year of playing the position, but his technique has improved significantly throughout. So that just demonstrates his ability to go in the learning curve and just get better each year. He also has experience in the off-ball backer position too. So while he probably won't play it because that's not where he's valuable at, he does have the option. At number 2, we have cornerback / wide receiver Travis Hunter. I know some people will probably think this is like a media hype ranking or whatever, but I just think he's an elite athlete and a great football player. I am mostly rating him as a cornerback because I personally think he should play 70 to 80% of his snaps at that position, with maybe 10 to 20 reps at wide receiver. But I don't really know what he'll end up doing. I just think he's better at corner. He has great top end speed and also recovery speed if someone gets a rattle on him. He's long, and obviously he has some of the best hands and ability to play the football out of any corner in the draft. His zone coverage is the best of the best. Now, his man can use some work, but he clearly has the physical traits for it, and that can come along the way. At 3, I have running back Ashton Jeanty. If you watched anything of Jeanty, you know why he's such a good prospect. And if you're one of those people who thought he looked terrible versus Penn State, I honestly don't think you know anything about ball, because if you watch that with the context of what's going on in that game, he still looked phenomenal. Jeanty has a great frame, he's dense. Combining that with his contact balance leads to him just breaking tackles left and right. He has good enough hands and moves after the catch so that he'll be a good enough receiving back in the NFL as well. His patience is phenomenal, and honestly, it reminds me of Le'Veon Bell in that aspect. Pairing that with his acceleration and his lateral quickness, he always finds a way to hit the hole. Now, when he hits the hole, his top end speed isn't the best of the best, but it's more than good enough to be a successful running back in the NFL. Acceleration is much more important. He's also a very willing pass blocker. He's not phenomenal at it because his size limits him, but he's never going to back down from it. And then at number 4, we have defensive tackle out of Michigan, Mason Graham. Extremely strong player who can hold the line and plug up the gaps, but he also has really fast hands and explosive first step that can generate his pass rush from the interior. Edge rushers kind of get all of the love on that defensive line, but a dominant defensive interior can be so important, as we've seen with someone like Aaron Darnold helping Rams win the Super Bowl. Chris Jones has been awesome for the Chiefs. It is in a position that is very undervalued in my opinion. So when you have someone with the great technique and leverage like he does, pairing with his physical attributes, Mason Graham can be a game wrecker on defense. At number 5, I have offensive tackle Will Campbell out of LSU. He has great size at 6'6" and roughly 320, but he actually has kind of a slim base for that size. He's very strong though, and he has very quick, controlled movements. I don't have a doubt he's the best overall lineman in this class, but he plays a little high at pre-snap, which hurts his pad levels during the blocks. So overall, his technique's good, but he does have some work. My biggest concern with Will Campbell is I think he might need to move to guard. At number 6, I have Malachi Starks, a safety out of Georgia. Overall, he's very well built physically. He has a long wingspan for a safety. He's not the heaviest, but he is strong. He has great top end speed. He is a sprinter in track and field as a background. Great speed. From what I've read and heard, as a defensive leader and a communicator, he is elite. I mean, he played under Kirby for years, so that helps. I've heard people say his film study and his just knowledge of the game is exceptional, which is one thing you definitely want out of any player, but especially a safety. He has very fluid hips, which also allow him to pick up people in coverage, and he's one of the best tacklers for anyone in the secondary. so he can help you in coverage, but also as a run stopper. He can be a little aggressive and out of control at times, but that's definitely something you can adjust with. At number 7, we have the corner out of Michigan, Will Johnson. At 6'2" and over 200 pounds, he has one of the better physical structures of a corner, but he has the change of direction ability of a much smaller guy. He has great instincts in reading quarterback play, and he can bait and jump routes with the best of them. Similar to Hunter, his zone coverage is phenomenal, but he's also very good in man, and he understands the leverages and his lateral quickness well. Now, his ability to press is limited, which will hurt his man coverage, and his top end speed will limit his ability to guard a few guys in the NFL. But he has good enough speed. I mean, he wouldn't be this high if he didn't. At 8, I have edge rusher Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M. He has a very good frame and great strength built into a well enough athletic body. His moves as a pass rusher look very natural. He can either power you, or he has enough elusiveness in his ability. Now, he still does have a lot of technique development to work on, but overall, he can still be dominant, and he has room to work with, so you can only see the upside going on from there. At number 9, I have the tight end, Tyler Warren. Warren really exploded during Penn State's run to the semifinals. He has the size to play online or off as almost like a slot receiver, or in the backfield. He has the athletic ability to be versatile, paired with his size, make him a mismatching nightmare. He has really long arms, which help his catch radius and his blocking, and he also loves to be physical. This guy wants to hit people. Now, he is a lot stiffer than some other tight ends, which, that limits his overall receiving, but his production will still be good. Now, is Warren any kind of prospect that Brock Bowers was? No. And I'm talking about Bowers as a prospect. Obviously, we saw him once he got to the league, he was dominant, but Warren is still a very good tight end prospect, and he's the number 1 tight end in this class, which is saying something because there's a lot of really good players here. At number 10, we have wide receiver Tet McMillan out of Arizona. Now, I'm going to be the first to tell you I'm not a massive Tet fan, but I do think he is a very safe pick in this class. He's 6'5", 220. That kind of explains a lot right there. He has a massive catch radius. His acceleration is impressive for someone of that size, and he has very smooth strides. So his hands, with his size, he doesn't drop the ball at all. Like I said, he's going to be a very safe player. Now, his separation ability is limited. Almost half of his targets were contested, meaning he really wasn't breaking away from his defenders. And while he can make those catches, you do want to see better separation to really excel and become a superstar at the next level. He'll struggle at certain routes just because of his size. It's hard for him to complete all routes due to, flexibility. And you also wish he was a little better of a blocker given his size, but he has the potential to reach there. So, like I said, I don't think McMillan has the upside of like the Neighbors and the Brian Thomas Juniors that we saw last year, but I do think he's a very safe pick in this class. At number 11, we have linebacker Jalen Walker out of Georgia. Very, very explosive first step and great flexibility for him to bend kind of around blocks and tackles. We don't really know if he's going to play the outside linebacker or the inside linebacker position. I think he could do both. Part of his game, I think he'd be better off inside, but his lateral quickness is a little limited, which I think will affect that. And his sideline speed helps him contain the run. He's a great pursuit kind of guy. And similar to Starks, just playing the middle linebacker position for Kirby Smart demonstrates something right there as it is. And then we finally have our first quarterback, and that's Cam Ward. I wasn't very high on Ward coming into the draft, but after kind of watching him a little bit more closer, reading some experts talk about him, I do like him a lot more than I used to. He has a very natural and smooth arm release, but it's kind of sidearmy, and it can be kind of inconsistent with his ball placement. But he does have extremely natural arm talent. He was a very successful middle of the field passer, and like I said, he has great arm talent, and he has good touch, which allow him to succeed in the deep ball. So he's a middle of the field guy who can also go deep. Those are two very important aspects to succeed in the NFL. He's also a very strong athlete. He's quick, he can run, but he also has almost like a little bit of Big Ben in him, where if a guy grabs him, he can just kind of brush him off and stay on his feet and throw a good ball still. He does hold on to the ball way too long, and fumbling is a problem. So there are some things he needs to tidy up. But if you're drafting for a potential superstar quarterback, potential is the key word there. I think he's your number one guy. At number 13, I have the offensive tackle out of Ohio State, Josh Simmons. The biggest problem with Simmons is, so he had a season-ending injury while playing Oregon very early in the game. So basically, we haven't really seen him play any of Ohio State's top opponents. We didn't see him finish the Oregon game. We didn't get to see him play Texas or Tennessee or Oregon again, or the national championship game. But he was having a great season before that. He has a wide base of support, long arms, he gets a low pad level. All of that will help translate him to playing tackle in the NFL. He also has very quick feet and long strides that help him kind of expand the pocket. His one knock, besides the playing that I mentioned, is he has a little lower weight and he's not the strongest tackle. But obviously both of those can be easily addressed. And as long as his medicals come back clean and he looks healthy, I actually think he has a shot at becoming the number one tackle in this draft. At number 14, I have wide receiver Luther Burden III. I was actually very tempted to put him as my wide receiver 1 because of his upside. I don't think he's as guaranteed to be great as McMillan, but he's a phenomenal athlete, good top end speed, very fast footwork, and he's also very good off balance too. He's one of the best yards after catch playmakers in this draft. He tracks the balls vertically really well, but he doesn't always attack the ball well in the air. So that'll hurt his deep ball threat. But if he works on that, he could also be a very deep ball guy, along with a short screen kind of guy. He's not a great blocker because of his size, but he is willing to try at least. So like I said, I think he has a better potential than McMillan to be like a superstar, but he also has a lower floor. At number 15, I have tight end Colston Loveland. This is a really stacked tight end class, and I do love Loveland. If he wasn't held back by quarterback play, I think he probably could have competed with Warren as the number one tight end in this class. He's a very explosive athlete. He runs good routes, but he does need improvement as a blocker, and his hands aren't. He does have some drop problems that can be worked on, but he's basically a superb athlete that needs to work on actually being a better catcher in order to make that athleticism transfer. And at 16, we have quarterback Shedeur Sanders. Here's my thing with Sanders. I don't love him because his upside is capped. And if I'm drafting a quarterback really high, it's already a volatile position. I want him to have great upside as well. He's arguably the best passer as of right now, but his arm strength is good but not great, and his athleticism is good but not great also. So he's very fundamental, good mechanics. He has shown ability to throw on the run. He's also a very accurate thrower, but again, he lacks the arm talent that allows him to have a great deep ball, allows him to thread the needle in tight windows, and his inability to run compared to what you would think he'd be able to, seeing that he's prime son. I think the odds of him being a top 10 or 5 quarterback is almost 0%. And again, if I'm drafting a position that's already so hard to hit on, I want there to be some upside in there. At number 17, I have defensive tackle out of Ole Miss, Walter Nolan. This guy is storming up my rankings. I loved him before all the Senior Bowl practices were going out, but he's just been nothing but dominant there as well. He has a great build. He's very strong and explosive. He shows great effort and plays he plays the run very well, and he's shown that he can get great pressure inside on the quarterback. His hand use is phenomenal, but he does lack great pass rushing moves that would probably limitate how dominant of a defensive tackle he can be, but I think he can get there for sure. At 18, I have wide receiver Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State. Very quick, he's a route running specialist, and he has good body control for sure. He seems like a very high IQ player. He's played at Ohio State for some years now. He's experienced, and he finds space really well in zone, and he's very good at getting leverages on all of his routes. His size limits his efficiency with blocking, but he's a very willing blocker, so that's something for sure. At 19, we have the tackle out of Texas, Kelvin Banks Jr. Banks has a really good pad level when he plays. He also has very good foot speed, which allows him to stay with explosive pass rushers. So he has the ability to handle power and speed rushers. Now, he is kind of short, And it looks like he has short arms, even though we don't have any official measurements yet. So that might hurt his ability to play tackle at the next position. He also might have to switch to guard, but either way, I think he'll be a very good lineman no matter what. Now his run blocking does need to develop for sure, especially his ability to get to the second level, but that can be worked on, definitely. And at 20, we have defensive tackle Kenneth Grant out of Michigan. This position is stacked in the draft this year. Grant is a space eater for sure. He's a massive human being. He will clog up blocks, clog up gaps for sure. He also is surprisingly explosive for his size. Now, he does play too high, and he needs to take advantage of his size by getting better leverage, because then he'd be able to blow up blockers and get after the quarterback much better. But he's a space eater. He can dominate the run. He has the potential to become a pass rusher. He's also great at breaking up passes. At 21, linebacker Jahad Campbell out of Alabama. Campbell is a really long, athletic frame, great closing burst. He's very, very athletic. He also has a good zone coverage IQ and play recognition, which allows him to be kind of that support system in the middle of the field as a zone guy. Now, he does have poor urgency at times as a run stopper, and his anticipation, seeing the run play develop, causes him to get blocked on the second level a little too much. At 22, we have edge rusher James Pierce Jr. Pierce Jr. is arguably the number 1 or number 2 edge rusher when you look at potential. He has the physical tools to be the best edge rusher in this class for sure. He's athletic, twitchy, tall and long. He did show a lot of progress in technique compared to last year, which is very promising, but he still has a lot of work to do in that department, and he needs to fill out his frame and weight, which will help him with his bull rush ability. But all those things could be fixed, and if they are, he'll be a menace down the line. Another edge rusher, we got Mike Green out of Marshall. Great, twitchy, explosive athlete. He converts his speed to power well, and his hands are and he has really great hands as well. He does have shorter arms, which hurts his ability for swing moves, and he also has a poor bull rush ability, and we haven't really seen him play against top end talent as much, but during practices at the Senior Bowl, he looked great, and I really like him a lot. Then at 24, cornerback Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame. Morrison was one of my favorite corners going into the season. He has long arms, he has very good hands and press coverage, even with his smaller frame. I've seen him make really good transitions from shuffles to full stride to keep up with the faster wide receivers of the league. He also has a very good IQ. Now, he lacks the strength to get off blocks, but he is willing to help in the run. And he's coming off an injury, so obviously we'll have to see how his health stands out, but I think he could be a steal in the later first round of the draft for sure. At 25, I have cornerback Ravel out of East Carolina. Another tall, long, super athletic corner. He showed his ability to turn his hips quick and run with deep balls while maintaining his top end speed. His press coverage is pretty good for a lack of weight, so he's shown the physical ability and the skill ability. Now the problem is, he is an older prospect who has played in lesser competition his entire career. So we don't really have a good gauge on him how he is versus top end talent, but we've seen other corners like a Sauce Gardner, like a Quinnion Mitchell playing at small schools succeed in the NFL. He also tore his ACL this past year, so medicals will determine how he kind of ends up in the draft, like a few other players we mentioned so far. At 26, we have the edge rusher Mykel Williams, the guy out of Georgia. He competes with Pierce as the most physical specimen out of everyone. His size, his length, his just physique all fit what you want in an edge rusher. He's extremely quick and explosive on the first step, and he covers a ton of ground on that first step. However, for someone who's so quick, he does get out of his stance a little too slow, which kind of cancels out how good his first step is. So he has a lot of technique work to do, but again, when it comes to potential, he's one of the best, and I could see a team wanting to take him higher because of that, but I have him at 26. At 27, I have my second running back, Amarian Hampton out of UNC. He was the kind of the RB2 for basically the midway year to the end of the year until the playoffs, but I still have him as my RB2. His weight, his athleticism, all of the objective signs show a great NFL prospect. He's a very, very physical guy. He looks for contact both in the run and as a pass blocker, which is every NFL team wants a great pass blocking running back. Now he does need to learn patience and stay behind blockers a little longer, That's his biggest flaw, but if he can work on that with his strength, with having enough burst, he could be a great running back. And then at 28, I have offensive tackle or guard Amand Mambu out of Missouri. Kind of similar to the other guys I mentioned up to this point. I don't know if he's going to be able to play tackle in the NFL. He is very thick, powerful limbs. He has the physique to be a great tackle or guard, and he has great punches and handwork, but he has a little slower feet that might cause him to have to be at guard because he can't extend that pocket enough. At number 29, I have wide receiver Matthew Golden out of Texas. Golden is a crisp route runner with great footwork in all ranges of the route tree. He's great at using head fakes and using his hips to sell his breaking points to get his defender off of him. Now, he is undersized and he lacks the physicality to win at the catch point, which will be the main limiter in his ability to be a number 1 wide receiver. At number 30, I have cornerback Isaiah Thomas. Coming out of FSU, he has the size, strength, and athleticism paired with fluidity that kind of just pairs well together into the perfect cornerback build. His hip speed allows him to stay with top-end wide receivers while also showing great mirroring ability. He is very handsy. He will probably rack up some penalties, especially early on in his career. And he's not a great zone coverage, but he can learn and he has the ability to get better at it. He also needs to work on his pressing to be a better mirroring guy. At 31, I have defensive end Shamir Stewart. He is a physical specimen. He has the size and length, and he's very mobile to be a great defensive end. He does a great job at collapsing and sealing the edge to not let either running backs or mobile quarterbacks get on the perimeter. He's also very good at getting to the mesh point during a handoff. And if they run to the other side, he also shows great hash to sideline pursuit during the run game. Now, his pass rush production was very poor, and if you watch his pass moves, you can kind of see why. It's not like he doesn't have good pass moves, but it doesn't seem like he has a plan, or he seems kind of clunky sometimes with it. But if he works on that, he could be an overall great end. At 32, it's safety Nick Emanuori. He has the size of a linebacker, but he's very fluid and explosive athlete. Because of his size, he's a phenomenal run defending safety. He also showed great pass play recognition and ability to recover during pass plays as well if someone gets a beat on him. His one limiting factor will be his top end speed and his clunky backpedaling, which limits his ability to guard really fast wide receivers, but the biggest problem is it limits his ability to play a single high coverage. At 33, I got defensive tackle Derek Harmon out of Oregon. He shows the ability to be very explosive out of his stance, which allow him to generate pressure very fast. He also has really good punching and bull rush ability, which again allows him to knock back blockers quick and push the middle of the pocket up into the quarterback. He also shows great motor for chasing down running backs on any outside running plays. But his production doesn't match his disruptiveness. He didn't really take over games as a pass rusher. Teams didn't really have to game plan around him, and it limits his upside ability if you can't really figure out how to become more productive, get after the quarterback better. At 34, also out of Oregon, offensive tackle Josh Connolly Jr. He's kind of a lighter tackle with a smaller frame, which causes him to be knocked off. And he can also lean or punch into blocks too early, which then gets his base of support off. But he's very light on his feet. He has good range to both expand the pocket and for pulling plays when running to the opposite side. And he demonstrated continuously improvement throughout the season, showing he's trending upward. And he's someone that I could see getting drafted a little higher than I have ranked because of that. At 35, we have another tackle, Dante Irsay. Irsay has good size and length to be an NFL tackle. He has a very good first step, and he's pretty light on his feet. I would call him a very good pass protector and a solid run blocker, but he does have trouble playing with lower pads that could cause him to get in trouble with some of the stronger, faster edge rushers in the NFL. And at 36, we have cornerback Jadair Barron out of Texas. He has the size and length you want out of the position. He's also played outside corner, nickel, and safety throughout his career, demonstrating versatility. He possesses good speed but not elite, which will limit his ability to play with the top-end speedsters. He also doesn't have the strength paired with his size to box out bigger wide receivers, so I do think he will struggle in certain matchups in the NFL. But he has great hands and he has an ability to close out at the catch point in order to get picks and deflections. So he will definitely have a good role in the NFL, but I do think his upside is limited. At 37, running back Trayvon Henderson out of Ohio State. Henderson is an explosive speed back. If there's an opening in the gap or if he gets an edge, he can crib in a second. He also has the lateral quickness that allows him to get in and out of gaps and cuts very easily. So if he does get stopped, but there's an opening to the side, he can get in there fast. For a smaller back, he has no fear of contact. He wants to hit people as well. He's also a great pass blocker for his size, which is obviously something that NFL teams value a lot. He has phenomenal hands too. 0 drops last year, and he showed good routes. Now his smaller size will limit his ability to be an every down back, but he has the tools to be out there on any kind of down. His biggest knock is he needs to run with more patience. I just think it's a result of being the best athlete on the field. You just run. But in the NFL, if he can learn to let his blocks develop, he could be unstoppable. At 38, I had this guy pretty high compared to a lot of people, but I think he is something special. And that's tight end Harold Fannin Jr. He is an athletic freak. He's fast, he's smooth, he has great hands. He set the record for FBS receiving yards for a tight end. He shows great routes and multiple variety of routes as well. He's verbalized he's copied his game after Kelsey, and I also see signs of like an Antonio Gates. Now, I'm not saying he will be one of those guys because they're two of the best receiving tight ends we've ever seen, but it clearly has the tools to be a mismatch monster. He's too big for corners. He's too fast for linebackers. He does need to be a better blocker, but he's improving on it for sure. At 39, I have another wide receiver, Jalen Royals. Now, there's a lot of receivers that you could kind of put into this range, depending on what you need and what you look for. You have bigger, safer guys. You have other speedsters, but I want someone who could be higher upside here. And Jalen Royals is that. At the Utah State Elite Camp, he ran a 4.340. Now, that's not an official number, obviously, but he is fast. He also has very fluid hips, crisp route running. Combined with that speed, make him a matchup nightmare. He also has really good footwork and elusiveness at the line that makes it hard for him to get jammed even though he's smaller. And during his route running, he uses very good change of pace, which for someone that fast is a great tool. Strength is obviously the limiting factor with him. It's hard for him to win at the catch point in contested situations. He also sometimes doesn't really sell his double moves great, or he can telegraph what he's doing. He had a foot injury this year that only allowed him to play, I think, 8 games, but he was unguardable the year before, and I think he could be a great wide receiver in the NFL. And then last guy on my top 40 list, I have running back Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. He has the size you want in a lead back. He's very tough to bring down with just arm tackles. He also has great contact balance that allow him to bounce off bigger guys. He has phenomenal vision. If the opening is there, he'll find it, and he keeps his feet very active while being patient. So if a gap develops, he can hit it very quickly. But he doesn't have the top end speed or burst. It's very average, which will hurt how many big plays he can rip off. But he will get you yards, that's for sure. He also won't really shake many defenders in a 1v1 situation. So his superstar ability is limited, but he can be a very good running back.